let's get real. Social media is this absolute mess, right? It's a dumpster fire of bad takes, toxic debates, and all this algorithm-driven doom scrolling. Yet, I love it. I'm probably going to keep using it for the rest of my life. And that's because for all its problems, social media isn't the enemy in and of itself. If anything, it's a reflection of who we already are, our impulses, our attention habits, and our unfiltered, unthought through thoughts. And if we can see it for what it is, we can use that to our advantage instead of maybe being swept up or consumed by it. And here's why I'm sticking around, right? First, social media is just a tool. We tend to blame social media for everything from mental health crises to political divisions. And while yes, it can amplify certain issues, it's not the cause of those issues. We already have those issues. Just like books or TV or with the internet as a whole, social media is just a tool, a bit of a mirror that reflects back who we are. Whether it determines whether it adds value to your life or drains you is up to you. Mark Manson makes a great point. People love to blame social media for ruining attention spans and making everyone anxious. But studies don't actually prove social media being the cause of those things. Are people anxious because of social media, or are anxious people just more likely to be using social media as a channel or an escape? And the truth is, social media reflects our very nature, right? It doesn't create it. Cal Newport, in his book Digital Minimalism, suggests that social media should be treated kind of like a power tool, right? If you use it carelessly, it can cause damage and put holes in walls that you don't want. But when you wield it with a bit of skill and a bit of intention, it becomes this asset, right? Rather than this liability. The problem then isn't with the tool itself, it's how we engage with it. And psychologist Sherry Turkle, author of Reclaiming Conversation, she emphasizes that social media itself is not inherently damaging, but rather it shifts the way we interact, right? It fosters connections, while also distancing us from people, meaning we need to be more mindful about how we use it to maintain those real world relationships. Research from the Oxford Internet Institute has shown that when we're using social media in a moderate way, right, it can actually enhance our well-being when it's balanced with other things that we're doing, right? Just like you take a vitamin as part of a healthy diet. It's about moderation, right? Not elimination. And businesses as well are leveraging social media as more than just an advertising tool, but as a comms tool. Now, according to Harvard Business Review, effective social media strategies have helped companies and indeed so many small businesses to enhance their customer engagement and improve their brand reputation, which allows them to more adequately have real-time interactions with real customers. Now, Mark Manson, who we talked about before, talks about the attention diet, which is just as important as your actual diet. If you consume nothing but junk, nothing but burgers and fries and hot dogs and slushies from 7-Eleven, or if it's online, if it's outrage and misinformation and negativity, you're going to feel like garbage. But if you curate your feed to focus on the things that inspire you, educate you, or connect you to the kind of people you care about, social media can be a net positive. Now, I've experienced this firsthand. I used to let my feed be dictated by the algorithm, and unsurprisingly, it was like this dumpster fire of just a mess, people hating each other, yelling at each other. Once I started unfollowing the toxic content and muting out the people who really were bringing that, I became engaging more intentionally, and the whole experience just shifted to a different place. The feed became a place of ideas. It became a place of meaningful discussions, real connection. Jaron Lanier, the author of 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now, he argues that social media is a bit of a mind-shaping tool, right? The key to making it work then is for you to resist all that addictive engagement and outrage porn and focus on those genuine relationships and the content that fosters well-being. Similarly, behavioral scientist Nir Eyal in Indistractable suggests that rather than quitting social media, we should take control of how we use it. That means scheduling social media time the same way we schedule dinner. We have no issue doing that. And being deliberate with the interactions we make, and that can make all the difference. By applying a bit of digital mindfulness, we can train ourselves to use social media for productive and fulfilling purposes, rather than this just mindless input of ideas and consumption that doesn't help us. The Journal of Consumer Psychology then also reports that intentional engagement with positive content can actually increase happiness and life satisfaction. That sounds good, right? Now, have you ever been stuck doom scrolling, seeing everyone's perfect lives on Instagram or feeling like yours isn't measuring up? And that's what Mark Manson calls the feedback loop from hell. It's where negativity kind of feeds itself in this endless cycle, right? And Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge have explored how social media impacts teen mental health, and there's some definite notes there. They've noted that endless scrolling and comparison lead to quite heightened anxiety. But the issue with that isn't the existence of social media as a channel. It's how we choose to engage with it, right? The trick is to stop engaging with the stuff that makes us feel like crap. That doesn't seem like such a earth-shattering idea. If something triggers feelings of insecurity in you, or if it triggers frustration or some kind of mindless comparison to other people, just hit the not interested button. It's right there. The algorithm follows what you do, not what you say you want, right? So another approach is practicing social media hygiene. I've seen this one going around a bit in the last couple of years, where you set certain time limits or you unfollow the accounts that don't serve you, right? And you actively choose positive interactions rather than this passive consumption of whatever's coming through the feed, which can be a real danger in places like TikTok, where the feed is just brutal. Now, according to Dr. Andrew Przybylski, a researcher at Oxford University, the key is not the amount of social media use, which seems to be what we seem to focus on, but rather how we engage with it. It comes up again and again. Passive scrolling is harmful, but active participation, commenting, creating, engaging, all that can be beneficial. Now, researchers from Stanford University also suggest that when individuals are content creators rather than passive consumers, their whole sense of self-worth and engagement is completely different. The creator tends to have a lot more self-worth, and as the engagement improves, it leads to a more fulfilling online experience. Not that you're just chasing likes, but that you are an actual creator. So for all its faults, social media still is the greatest connection tool we've ever had in the history of humankind. It's where I've met lifelong friends, reconnected with cousins that I hadn't seen in 20 years, built opportunities, built businesses, learned from amazing smart people I'd never have access to otherwise. It's a tool for amplification, right? And that can be good and that can be bad. And I choose to use it for good in my life. The journalist Taylor Lorenz argues that social media has democratized opportunity, allowing individuals to build up careers, right? Create movements, and then find those communities without those traditional gatekeepers like newspapers and websites. And this power, it shouldn't be ignored. It should be leveraged responsibly. So you consider movements like the hashtags of Me Too and Black Lives Matter both gained worldwide momentum. The Arab Spring is another example, right? Thanks to social media. They didn't happen until social media was a thing. It has given voices to people who are unheard. It's given voices to people who needed more awareness. It helped us to facilitate that awareness. It brought about real change. And companies and not-profits alike are pretty quick to leverage social media to create some kind of impact, hopefully always on the good side. Research from Pew Research Center indicates that non-profits that actively use social media, they see increased engagement, increased donations, and increased awareness for their causes. So at the end of the day, with all the good and all the bad, am I quitting social media? Not on your life. I'm using it on my terms though. The choice isn't between this all-in chaos and this complete rejection and Zen mentality of living in a forest cross-legged. It's about being intentional about that social media. The problem isn't social media. The problem is how we use it. Now, that doesn't make for a great political slogan, I know, but once we get that this is what it is, everything changes.